Lawyers of Reddit, what's your best most badass I rest my case moment? Opposing counsel decided that I had coached my witness and gave him lines to repeat that he was lying. Short version is that he asked the witness if he spoke to me before he testified. Witness said he had. Attorney looked like he thought he had me. Attorney asked the witness what I told him, what instructions I gave him. Witness looked him dead in the eye and said, first thing he told me was to tell the truth no matter what. He said the lawyer is never the one who goes to jail, that he isn't going to jail for me, and if I lie, I'm on my own. Attorney looked like someone took the air out of him. Everyone in the courtroom simultaneously looked at me. Only time I've smirked or laughed in court. I wanted to put my feet up on the table, like I was Vincent LaGuardia Gambini, hands behind my head, and say, I'm done with this guy. I had a trial against a guy who was self-representing, and he was constantly asking my client about conversations she had with me. First of all, no, I'm not coaching her to lie, and second of all there's a thing called privilege which means the things we discuss are not compellable. It was an exhausting trial. Needless to say, he was ordered to pay about $1 million more than he actually owed. He could defend an innocent man all the way to death row. I was prosecuting some kid. He had an antisocial behavior order, which meant that he was not supposed to go to a certain street. He had pleaded not guilty on the basis that he had not been there. I opened my cross-examination by holding up a map and pointing at the street. I said to him, you went here, didn't you? He said yes. In England, we don't say I rest my case. Instead I looked up at the bench, said no further questions, and sat down. It might not seem badass, but I got the defendant to admit the offense with one question. That never happens. Why can't he go to a certain street? Usually because going there is likely to cause some sort of issue with antisocial behavior. Maybe he was intimidating someone on that street, or was in a gang with someone who lived there, or something. An antisocial behavior order ASBO in the UK is a way of making basically not a lawyer a law specific to one person. For instance, it's effectively illegal for you to be out of your house after 10 PM, or to associate with certain people, or go to certain places. I'm not entirely comfortable with the idea as I feel it is open to misuse, but I can see that, if applied fairly and sensibly, it's a useful tool. My client and his wife were woken up one night because people were trying to break into his house. He fired 2 warning shots as his wife called 911. The neighbor also called 911. When the police got the neighbor's call that there were shots fired, the police sergeant radioed the other officers and said he's going to jail tonight, referring to my client. So obviously, even with signs of someone trying to break in and his wife calling 911 for help, the officers arrest my client for endangering his wife by shooting inside the house nowhere near her. It gets to a jury trial and I start to go off on the police sergeant about why she would say that before an investigation and before she even had any idea what happened. The sergeant had no idea how to respond and literally just sat there staring at me for a solid 2 minutes before saying anything. Even the bailiffs were audibly laughing. When the police got the neighbor's call that there were shots fired, the police sergeant radioed the other officers and said he's going to jail tonight. Just curious, how did you get the record of this? Did the other officers give up the sergeant? A third party my company hired is being sued for violating national do not call laws. We received a document third party wanted to settle with customer. Our lawyer, this document doesn't name us, so tell them it's fine to sign. If they want to settle 100% on their own, they can go for it. Me I know, but from what I read, we are vaguely mentioned at sentence 3, and then by name in sentence 5, 7, 13, 17, and 21. Our lawyer, oh, right. Force them not to sign it as we have to figure this out on our side. These are the people who make 5x what I make, and charge $800 hour, to not even read the first paragraph of the settlement. Sadly, this seems to happen quite often. I'm not an attorney or a paralegal, I'm just a property manager. But I've dealt with literally hundreds of lawyers and their paralegals, aides, etc. Common theme among them is a lack of reading skills for anything beyond the first sentence or before the last. Me. I read everything front to back multiple times with a highlighter and a notepad handy. We had a case where opposing counsel was cross-examining our expert witness on hydrology regarding some silt runoff issues. Mr. Smith, wouldn't you agree that the book I'm holding is highly respected in your field and considered to be the gold standard on the subject? Witness: I'm aware that it is highly regarded in my field. Would you be willing to explain, in your own words, what paragraphs 6 to 10 on page 121 is describing? Witness reads the passage word for word. Yes, I can read, but could you put this passage in your own words for the court? Witness: these are my own words. I wrote it. We were the defendants. We were being sued by an hoa over silt in a lake. We were able to prove that we weren't responsible and prevailed. It actually originated from another site and entered the lake elsewhere. However, that site was owned by a very large corporation and I don't think the hoa wanted to fight with an entity that could fight forever. I'm guessing they were trying to discard the expert witness. At least pick up a different book if you're trying this. Not a lawyer, but this is my favorite story in traffic court. I got a ticket for going 75 miles per hour on I-88 near Chicago. The officer wrote on the ticket I was going 88 miles per hour on I-75. Detroit south to Miami, not near Chicago. I show up wearing a suit because I have one suit and I may as well wear it. Judge calls on me asking me if I'm a lawyer. I say I'm not, but I get to go first because I'm the only one in a suit. Judge looks at the ticket, says you were going 88 on I-75. Officer X, what does this ticket say? Isn't I-75 out of our jurisdiction? At this point I open my mouth and shut it because I have the right to remain silent. May as well show the ability to be silent as well. Officer says, Your Honor, at my age I have no idea what I wrote. Judge gives him a look and throws my license back at me in the plastic bag. Says you are free to go. Always wear a suit to traffic court. Sweet. Time for that cop to retire. IP lawyer, deep in a set of terms and conditions on a website. Our client's details, name and contact details were listed. So it is very evident that they just copy pasted our client's legal terms and conditions and missed a couple of details they needed to change. I was handed the matter, did a quick Ctrl+F for client details, and it was an open and shut case. Not really that impressive, but saved me hours of time going through each term one after the other, noting exact similarities for a letter of demand. Welcome to the world of law, where we spend millions on technology, but people don't know how to Ctrl+F or use a simple spreadsheet. It's not that they didn't know how to use Ctrl+F. It's that they didn't know they needed to replace anything else, because even the lawyers don't read the entire EULA. I know this isn't the point of the post or your comment, but if the EULA is too long for the fluffing lawyers, I genuinely think it's unethical to hold up the expectation that users will read it. Iron Albert story is relevant. Wife was in a custody battle. Her ex took the first 6 years of his kid's life off to pursue a college degree, and he's now ready to be in his son's life. So witness testimony day is here. Ex's mom takes the stand. She's a retired elementary teacher, upstanding citizen, yada yada yada. His lawyer goes on about her accolades to prove she knows what she's talking about. Then proceeds to ask about my stepson's intelligence, manners, behavior. Then the lawyer starts asking about why grandma feels the mother is unfit for full custody. About how she's a bad parent, does this and does that. How she dates random dudes. We'd been together for 4 years at this point. His grandma ends her testimony with a long-winded K is the most well-behaved, smart, active little boys I've ever met. He's really a great kid. My wife's lawyer stands up and asks her one question. So, you're saying that he's done pretty well without his dad for the last 6 years? Defendant in a bench trial for a speeding ticket said he couldn't possibly go as fast as the officer clocked him. He knew this because he videotaped himself accelerating from a full stop to the location of where the officer sat. His experiment showed his vehicle could only get to 55 miles per hour and not the 67 miles per hour he was clocked at. The adder then moved to have another speeding ticket issued because the actual posted speed limit was 50 miles per hour. 5 miles per hour over is probably just a fine and a few points. 17 over is possibly reckless driving depending on the officer's discretion. I'd take that. So he went 88 km/h in a 80 km/h zone and got ticketed? As a Canadian, that's crazy to me. The norm is going up to 10 kilometers per hour above the limit, unless it's a school zone or something. In New Zealand the gap is 4 kilometers per hour before you get a fine, and 0 kilometers per hour during the summer. Does it help? Who knows? Corporate lawyer, so I don't have cases to rest. But once opposing counsel was forcefully insisting that it was ridiculous for me to expect a certain provision in a contract we were negotiating, and I pointed out that this provision was standard in his own firm's contract forms, as I knew from several prior transactions it worked on across from them. Pretty exciting stuff. He took it in stride and said jokingly, "Well, of course it's fine when we ask for it." Why do you have the right to do that? We will never do that. Then why do you have the right to do that? It doesn't matter. We will never do that. Then why do you have the right to do that? And so on and so forth. Transaction law is the best. This reinforces Op's point. Nothing shuts them up faster than sliding their own paper across the table. Yes, you do. This is especially fun when it's a small firm opposing a big law firm. All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. Complaining witness accused my client of harassment stalking. Said she told him numerous times that she wanted nothing to do with him. My client claimed they were dating, but whenever she got mad at him, she'd call the police and say he was harassing her. On the stand, she testified that she'd never dated him, never invited him into her home, wanted nothing to do with him. She presented a photo on her phone of him sitting on her porch to prove that he had come to her property. I asked the judge permission to look at the photos before and after the porch photo for context. Girl had dozens of photos of the guy, who was clearly her boyfriend. I showed her one such picture. This is Mr. So-and-so, right? Yes, in this photo, he's on a bed. Yes, the bed is yours. Yes, the bed is in your bedroom. Yes, you took this photo of him. Yes, he's smiling in the photo. Yes, and in this photo, he's wearing your brassiere. Yes, no further questions, Your Honor.